Welcome to Forum 360 on Fusion, your PBS channel and your Rubber City radio stations. We're co-sponsored by the Shaw Jewish Community Center. This is Leslie Ungar, your host today. It used to be that if you saw an airplane at the beach towing an ad for a business, that was non-traditional media. Then companies started putting up messages on sides of buildings, and that was non-traditional media. Well, how long does a specific media need to be around before being considered traditional media? In today's world, does media want to be known as traditional media or non-traditional, or does it really matter? When critics lump everything from bloggers to the New York Times as media. We have what is sometimes regarded as non-traditional media joining us today to talk about non-traditional media and traditional media. Our guests today are Chris Horne from The Devil's Strip and Nicole Mullet, Executive Director of Arts Now, and their new website is summitlive365.com. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining us on Forum 360.
Thanks
for having us.
So my first question, I find that we use a lot of words that we use, and then when we stop and think about it, we really don't always know exactly what the words mean, but it doesn't
Chris
stop
does that
us
all the time.
See? It doesn't stop us from using them.
Yeah.
So, we hear words like traditional and non-traditional media, but to lay the groundwork for today's show, let's get a working definition. What is traditional media, and then what is non-traditional media?
Well, all right. So I come from a print background and from a broadcast background, and I think of those as legacy media, which is a little bit different than traditional, non-traditional. So I haven't really thought much about that difference, but I know, legacy media, you tend to think of, the broadcast mentality. We're going to put this out there to as many eyeballs as we can possibly get. We're going to put this out there to as many readers as we can get. And I think, personally with our magazine, The Devil's Strip, we're a little bit more about niche. We're focused on people who are passionate about Akron. So I'm not interested in everybody in Akron. I'm interested in people who are active, who are engaged, who are creative, who are community-loving, community-building people. So for me, that difference between traditional and non-traditional is a mindset more than it is a format. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, because, actually as a communication coach, I think everything is about mindset first and then about how it's implemented. So that actually leads to my second question, which is about that mass versus niche, because that media pie keeps getting cut into smaller and smaller pieces.
Yep.
We used to have, let's just say, network news, and so you had maybe 3 pieces: ABC, NBC, CBS.
Yep.
And now you have all of these smaller pieces, and so instead of mass audiences, you have niche audiences. So what's the difference between a mass media and a niche media to you?
To me, it's about focus. So it's easier for me to help put together an issue for the magazine, or to think about a story or a project, because I know that our audience is interested in things that will generally make this area better. If I were the daily paper, I'd have to be concerned with crime reports. There's the plane crash, things like that. Those aren't on our radar. There might be stories that we could tell out of these things, but we're focused on arts, culture, music, entertainment, and occasionally some investigative reporting. Right. So for me, it's about focus. If you have to do broadcast, you do things that appeal to a broad number of people. And some of this is going to hit, so you might 10% of what you do might hit with 10% of the audience and 15 over here, and you got that fractured. But when you talk about the fractured audience, right, I think of broadcast in that way. I think you're putting out one thing from one stream that's going to hopefully hit enough people to kind of cobble together something. And for me, niche makes more sense because I can work with a small, dedicated, energetic band of people.
So niche would be focus. So a niche market is a focused market.
Yep.
Would you say that from an art standpoint, that would be the same thing? Is that you want? Do you want the mass audience to say come to your new website, or do you want a niche market to come to your new website?
So I'm going to say both, just to complicate things. Yeah. just did. So we want, you know, the arts community to be represented on the website, but we want it to be accessible to everybody in the county and to be a really low barrier to access arts and culture in Summit County. So we want folks to be able to go to the website, find something great that's happening that evening, and take their kids and go discover something new. So we're kind of focused on both. Yes, the website is arts and culture, but in terms of accessibility, we want everyone to be able to get there.
You know, that kind of reminds me, I probably should not admit this in public, let alone on the air, but the only time the last couple of years I've gone to the Akron Art Museum, as wonderful as it is, they have this event that I guess featured beer, but I'm not a beer drinker, but that was the event I ended up at. Yeah. But it seemed to me that they were appealing to a different market than many of their events may appeal to. But it brought people in that didn't typically come to the Akron Art Museum.
Well, and that is something that I think Chris and also Roger Riddle do really well, is shining a light on some interesting venues to get people in. And then once you're in the door, then suddenly it doesn't seem like such a big deal to go back to the Art Museum for one of their free Thursdays. And that's something that I think he does very well. That's the only compliment I'm paying you today.
Okay. Well, I also think that the Art Museum, the folks there do a really good job of mixing up their programming. So, and this is, I've only paid attention for the last year and a half, you know, in this, you know, role. But they do a lot of great kids programming, you know, through their education director, Alice Kaplan, and they do, you know, some really interesting exhibits. And I think that they do mix up their public events. Plus, the whole mentality behind the Inside Out project that they did, where they've taken, you know, pieces of the collection, made replications, and put them out in different, you know, neighborhoods. I think that whole process is sort of what Nicole's talking about when she says, you know, we want to be accessible to everybody. So, you know, the mission for the Art Museum is really to help give people access to the art that they have collected, right? And I'm sure it's a little fancier than that, but that's my take. So they put it out in the neighborhoods because, you know, yeah, we want the folks to come to the museum, but we want them to have this exposure first and foremost. And I think that's similar to what you're talking about with the website.
So let me ask you,
No, it is.
Chris, well, first, what is the Devil Strip?
The magazine or the strip of grass?
The magazine.
Okay.
But actually, you know what? There may be someone out there that doesn't know what the Devil Strip is. I
didn't until we were moving here. So yeah, I come from Georgia.
So the Devil Strip, that we refer to something as the Devil Strip, that's a strip of lawn. That is not a term that you've found is used around the.
I just knew it as a piece of grass that I had to cut and would often forget to cut when it was my time to do the yard. But you know, I started doing, you know, some research on Akron before we moved here, and that stuck out. You know, there were some great stories about the Devil Strip, and you know, got time to make a magazine. I didn't want to call it like the Akron Weekly or whatever, and you know, the Devil Strip just stuck out. It seemed, you know, more colorful, so that's what we did. The magazine itself, it's, you know, arts, culture, it's entertainment, you know, music. We do community news.
Okay, let me ask you first. Why did you feel there's other media, whether it's, say, the Akron Beacon Journal or the West Side Leader or some news source. There are other news sources out there.
Sure.
So why did you feel that there was something needed to cover arts and culture and events?
I'm glad you asked. All right, so when we moved here, one of the things I look for when I'm just visiting a city is an all-weekly. You know, the arts and culture magazine. It's because I want to know, like, who are the bands I should pay attention to, what restaurants are the cool ones, and, you know, what part of town should I go explore, you know, the parks, the shops, all this stuff, right? And I didn't find that. You know, I like the daily paper, and I like, you know, the West Side Leader, but I didn't get that kind of information when I was, you know, looking for it. And so I was working in Cleveland at Channel 5 for about a year, and I just kept thinking, gosh, you know, I really wish I were more involved in Akron and that kind of thing. And my background is in print, and it is in, you know, all weeklies, and so I just wanted something like I had already known, and there wasn't anything like that here, and it made sense to me. The other piece of it...
First, let me ask you, if someone is listening or is watching, and they think, well, you know, okay, we lived a long time without one. Why do we need a weekly to talk about what's going on, whether it's in music or art or whatever? Why do we need a weekly to talk about these things?
Need might be a bit of a strong word, but I think it's good for the community. There's so much going on in Akron, and so much of it kind of falls below the radar for most folks. You know, you go to your job, you get your kids, you get your friends, and you know, you end up going to chain restaurants and big box stores, and you kind of miss out on the things that make Akron unique. And as an outsider, I come in and I see almost nothing but stuff that makes Akron unique. I mean, it is a fascinating
give me
place to
three
live.
things. Three things that make Akron unique.
I can give you 300.
Give me 3.
All right, so your food. You have sauerkraut balls, pizza and JoJo's, and every place you sell pizza, you sell fried chicken. That's super weird. The Summit Metro Parks, for the opposite end of fried food, Summit Metro Parks, gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful. I think just the personality of the people that live here, there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. There's a real passion for this place. I love the fact that all the neighborhoods have some distinct character about them, and that we have 21 of these. So it's a city that feels like it's made up of small, fiefdoms and small cities, and that character kind of bleeds through the historical structures, the history of innovation in this town is fascinating. The culture and the arts that we have had going on here, and I think just the spirit, that seems to be kind of growing. That there is something happening, and there's something, moving forward. I love this place. I do. And so I survey these things and go, well, who's talking about this stuff? Now, that's not to say other people aren't covering these things. I'm not saying that at all. But I wanted to concentrate that because you spoke earlier about the fractured audience. Mm-hmm. All these different channels, all these different media, blogs, etc. I wanted to bring people together and not just forge an audience, but to forge a community out of this sort of movement. So there might be a few people who follow Dina's blog, right? There might be a few folks who do the Akron to Akron walks, and people who are following this person on Twitter and doing this, reading that. I want to help kind of create an umbrella. As I was saying in the beginning of starting this magazine, this is sort of like our bat signal. I'm going to put this magazine out there where you'll come across it when you go into shops and restaurants and bars.
So
and
this
venues.
is both a magazine in print and online.
Yeah. It started online, became a print magazine.
Okay, so it was online first and then became a print. Is that unusual? Is it usually print first and then goes online?
Correct. In fact, I could only find one other magazine of this format that has been started in the last 5 years in this country. So it's not being done.
So it's something
really
else that
anywhere.
makes us unique.
Yes, there we go. So.
Now, let me ask you, for Arts Now, you have a new website. So what does this new website do that wasn't being done?
That wasn't being done. So what happened in 2013 was GAR and the Knight Foundation came together to fund a landscape study from across Summit County. So Chris's focus is very Akron-centric. Summit Life 365 and Arts Now is county-wide. And one of the things that came out of that study was a need for a low barrier to entry, one-stop shop, so people knew what was going on in Summit County. So you could go to one place and find out if you were in Twinsburg, what's happening next door, what you can get involved in.
And when you say what's happening, that includes what?
In the arts and culture sector. So we're pretty broad, the way that we look at culture. That includes the parks, that includes, really the only thing that we excluded from the website would be all of the 5Ks, because people know to go to active.com. The people who run know to go to active.com and get on that. Those of us who don't run will just hang out at Summit Life 365.
And drink coffee.
Yes, and drink coffee. Yeah.
Today we're looking at non-traditional and traditional media in the Akron and Summit County area with two people that represent both kind of traditional and non-traditional media. Our guests today are Chris Horne from the Devil Strip, the print and online Devil Strip, not the one next to your driveway, and Nicole Mullet, who's executive director of Arts Now. As a communication coach, I have an exercise where I have clients do the walk across the room exercise. They have to answer a question in the time it takes to walk across a room. So I'm going to ask each of you, in the time it takes to walk across a room, why should someone read the Devil Strip? Why should someone go to your new website? Go.
If you're curious about Akron, and I think most people who have a passion for this place are curious about it. If you're passionate about anything, you're going to be curious about it. Our whole job is to find the stories that people aren't talking about, or not enough people are talking about. So we try to surface those things.
And why should someone come to your new website?
So individual artists should go there because it's a free forum for you to put your profile up and link to the work that you're doing, so we can help drive traffic to you. And then just the community as a whole, because we have so much great stuff going on in Summit County in terms of arts and culture that you could be going to several events every night. So get out there and experience something new, and that would be and it's fun. It'll be more enjoyable to be a Summit County-in.
If you know about this website.
It is now.
Yeah.
Now, much of media and social media is becoming interactive. Is either of your sources, your website, your online magazine, are either one interactive?
Define that.
however you want to define it.
All right, so I mean, there's one level, polls and things like that. I mean, yeah, we use those. We do some crowdsourcing to kind of get feedback from our audience. We're working on a project right now that will be more multimedia, with video, podcasts, and that sort of thing. Interactive like games, no, we don't do anything like that.
Or like asking you a question, answering a question.
Yeah, I mean, we do feed, but we have conversations on social media all the time.
Okay,
so yeah,
that's interactive.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
I actually think that's a strength of the Devil Strip, is that it really has started to feel like a community. So they do a really great job of engaging people, so that there are folks who really identify strongly with the Devil Strip and feel like it is a place for them.
Yep.
So.
And your website, is it interactive?
Well, interactive in that you can always find what's going on, and there's a place for you to connect with artists, yes.
Okay.
Interactive in the same way that Chris handles Twitter, no. Benjamin Rexroad is the king of our Arts Now Twitter, and he does a much better job than
you ever could.
Oh my gosh. It's hard. Twitter's hard, man.
Now, all print media has struggled over the past decade, but you chose to be a print magazine. So what did they do wrong, and how are you going to avoid it?
Well, I don't know about them doing anything wrong. I think it's a different set of tools. So, they're huge. Daily papers are huge. So they have huge overhead. I mean, the building that the ABJ is, and it's enormous, right? And it once upon a time was filled with people and machines that made that paper happen every day. I don't have to carry that kind of overhead. If I want to put breaking news on the website, I can do that quickly. If I want to save a story that we've worked on that has a lot of depth and put it in print so you could spend some time with it, I can do that. So I think it's just how we're using our tools. I'm starting from a small place, and I can grow. The daily paper and other daily papers, they have such huge overhead. So they had philosophical things that I think they could have done differently, but that's all hindsight. This day and age, it's just a matter of using your tools wisely. So, for me, if I were just a website, I'd have to cut through a lot of digital clutter. There's a lot of noise out there. And I could do that with an ad campaign or something like that, or just slowly word of mouth. But when I have this magazine, it gives some level of authenticity, but it also is physically in places. There are almost 90 places around Summit County where you can find my magazine. If you just kind of come across it, it's a free publication. You can pick it up, and now you're aware of who we are. And you can come back to the website. So it's an ecosystem.
Now, what do you want someone to do after they go to your website, after they read the Devil Strip, either online or in print? What do you want someone to do after they've been to your website?
I want them out in the community, engaging in the arts and culture sector. There's too much going on for folks to be sitting at home every night. So that's what I would like to see, shining a light on some of the stuff that maybe people aren't actively going to, and then driving traffic to them.
And what do you want someone to do? Let's take, for example, you write fairly often about the University of Akron. So what do you want someone to do after they read an article or an editorial about the University of Akron?
Be engaged. I want them to find, it depends on what the story is, I guess, but I want them to find some way. So we also write about nonprofits and other community organizations, Project Rise and the Snow Angels and the Toy Room that Summit County runs. There are certain things we want you to be engaged on that level. Donate, volunteer your time. If it's a band we're writing about their upcoming album release, go give it a listen. Spread the word, share it. It's really about doing your part in a community. It's not so much I want you to go do this, I want you to do that. I want you to become part of a community, because once you're part of a community, the actions that you should take come naturally. So you think local first. I'm going to go and eat at that local restaurant I heard about. I went to La Loma, man, that place was amazing. And then you share that, and you tell your friends, because you want them to have that same great experience that you had. You go check out what live shows are happening, or what's going on at the Civic. That's what I want. I want you to be part of the community. So it's not so much like a single action, hey, I read this and then I did that thing. I want it to be more immersive and more engaged in that.
Now, the word journalist, or not selfish, a bigger community. We hear a lot about journalists, just like we hear a lot about media. The definition of a journalist is a person who collects, writes, or distributes news or other current information. So are you journalists? You are either collecting, writing, or distributing news or other current information. So do you consider yourself a journalist?
I do not. No, I think I'll kick that one over to Chris for letting him.
Let me ask you, do you consider yourself a journalist?
I'm reticent to use that term, and it's not because I think it's a bad thing. I actually think so highly of the word that I don't like applying it to myself. I don't feel like I have. Sometimes I don't think I have the standards in place to keep myself in check or keep operation in check. I hold it in high esteem. I've worked with some great journalists and among some great writers and storytellers. It makes it difficult for me to lay claim to that. I try to do good journalism, but I don't know. It's a struggle. So.
Where do you see yourself if your website could be anything, and everything that you're doing at Arts Now could be anything that you wanted and your magical one worked, what would it look like 5 years from now? What would the arts, or what would Arts Now look like in 5 years? If in my magical world, if I could have what I want, I would like the website to be one tool that we're using, just one piece of the puzzle, which is an online way for people across the county to come together and figure out what's going on and find one another. I think as a whole, I would like to see the water rise for everybody. I think that one of the things that the landscape study showed us is that people are very comfortable driving 30 minutes to Cuyahoga County to go access the arts. And what my job is to do is to show them that really you don't have to do that. There's so much going on here that you don't. Yes, I'm going to stand on 77 just with a big sign. Yeah, turn around. Diana Ross, stop.
No, there's so much going on, and I think to build that community where people feel engaged and that the arts are accessible and that just take pride in all of the stuff that we have going on in this county. So.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, in the remaining minutes that we have, I'm going to ask you for a 1 or 2 word answer so I can get through several questions that I would like to hear your answers on. What is a source that you think does it right as a media outlet of any kind? Who is someone that's doing it right?
Does that have to be local or anywhere?
Anywhere.
Is 2 words.
There is no local. When it comes to the internet, right?
Yeah.
There is no local. We can put the click. We can be in Dubai.
I like Akron Empire a lot, the blog, and I know this is 1 or 2 answer. 1 or 2 word answer. That's Akron Empire, but they're run by the folks who running Crafty Mart, and I think so. I love that it spreads. It's not just the outlet itself.
And is there an outlet that you think does something really well other than your own, or you could just say your own?
Well, I'm a big fan of The Acronist. I think they're telling stories that deserve to be told in new ways.
Mm-hmm. So great.
Because of the Devil Strip, but whatever.
What is the best thing, we didn't say the Devil Strip enough, what is the best thing about Northeast Ohio from someone who is a fairly new citizen?
Oh, the people.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And what about the people? For the people that live here that don't know people, because we just assume it.
Yeah.
What about the people?
I don't know. There's such big hearts. I think there's this great blend of passion for where you live and this openness at the same time. I know that not everyone experiences that, but I have. Yeah. And that I couldn't imagine living anywhere else because of that.
And authenticity
and
too.
For you, as a newer person, even though you were born in Ohio, that came to Akron and Summit County, what is one of the best things about Northeast Ohio?
I hate to steal Chris's answer, but it's the people. Absolutely, it's what keeps me
then
here.
That makes you it makes it unanimous.
Yeah.
What is something about Northeast Ohio that's a secret to many that everybody doesn't know? That you have found out either through the arts or you found out through your...
Secret to the people who live here or secret to the world outside?
You can pick.
Well, all right, so when I was moving here, I thought it was going to be like all industrial ruin and factories and things like that. But the natural resources, whether it's the national park or it's Summit Metro Parks, oh gosh, blew me away. That was a clincher. The people, number one. Number two is the natural resources.
And a secret that you have found?
I think our music scene is pretty incredible. We have a history of it, and it continues to get better.
We do.
I'm bad at 2 words.
How do you think we will get our news in 10 years? 10 years, and I hope that we're all both sitting here 10 years from now. How do you think we'll get our news in 10 years in a couple words?
Same way we always have.
Oh, and what is that?
Word of mouth, and then things that amplify word of mouth. Whether it's the internet, newspaper, television. It's all the same. It's all the same basic thing.
I'm going to say the Devil Strip will have taken over everything in the state of Ohio.
And disseminate things telepathically.
Yes.
Now, you are both, you would both be millennials, Gen Y?
No, I'm an Xer.
You're an Xer?
I am.
Okay. What is your
asking me that?
What is your favorite piece of technology? If you could only take one to a desert island, what would you take?
Pen.
What?
A pen.
Chris,
A pen.
that's so-
Oh, a pen.
I would take my phone. There.
And what kind of phone?
Moto X. I'm an Android person. Seriously,
Same
do
here,
you
I'm
have
an
to
Android
sound
person.
I'm a
so
Droid.
clever and
Well, your
interesting?
batteries are going to die.
Yeah, but for
Pen's going
those-
to run out, but it's going to last longer.
Now, what is your favorite, in one word, what is your favorite news outlet?
ESPN. I don't know.
And your favorite outlet?
the Devil Strip.
The Double Strip. It used to be that when you were in a restaurant and looked down at the ads on the paper placemat, that was non-traditional media. Now there are many kinds of non-traditional media sources, and today we talked to two of them. Chris Horne from the Double Strip and Nicole Mullet, Arts Now, with a new website, SummitLive365.com. Traditional media, non-traditional media. Hopefully today you have a better idea of these words and what they mean to you and your media choices. Thank you for joining us on Forum 360. I'm Leslie Ungar. Continue the art of living local. Thank you for joining us today.
Forum 360 is brought to you with support from Electric Impulse Communications, Kim and Harvey Nelson, Rubber City Radio Group, Acronist.com, AkronBuzz.com, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Forum 360 supporters, and the Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron.